A well-struck iron shot out of the middle of the sweet spot is one of the best feelings in golf. It's also going to help your scores and confidence. I'm going to show you how to do it with precision every time. We have to ensure that our club at setup is actually flush to the ground. We don't want the toe being up too much. We don't want the heel being up too much. Our first main thing we have to ensure happens to give us that consistency is put it flush to the ground. And from here, what happens is I form my setup around it. So my club is in the ground and I now form my setup around it, meaning I'm going to keep my arms in the correct space to keep that club flat. And from here, I can kind of do like a Goldilocks thing. I'm a little bit too far away, so that's going to feel awkward. I'm a little bit too close. That's awkward, but I'm keeping the club flush. That is really one of the best things you can ever do for your golf swing, especially with irons. Trying to make sure this is flush. Once you have your radius sort of pretty comfortable, but what we're trying to do is sort of rehearse our impact position, our ideal impact position, which you probably know what it looks like. We want the hands a little bit further ahead. We want to feel like we're striking through the ball, but we're getting the ball first. We don't want to be hanging back here. I don't want to be too over the top. So what I'm doing in this rehearsal of an impact position, I'm kind of awakening and telling my body and brain where I want to be. So I want to be here. I want to be on top of that ball to compress it here. That's exaggerating it a little bit, but I'm making sure that the club at impact is still flush. So what I have to do from here is make sure that my backswing and impact are going to make it easy to return to that point. And it all starts from the setup.
A pull hook is one of those frustrating shots. There's multiple reasons why it occurs. This is a bit of the chicken before the egg type of scenario. What happens is we end up aiming ourselves a little bit too far right to try and compensate the pull hook. But what happens is, you know subconsciously that you're aiming further right. So you're actually just overdeveloping that challenge. But it's hard to just say aim further left when you haven't got some of the other factors correct first. A strong grip can also cause pull hooks because we might have developed this thinking it's going to help us combat a slice. But a strong grip, a too strong a grip, actually encourages a path that goes further left and turns that face over a little too much. If the ball position is too far forward, that's going to encourage us to make our path go further left because we have to try and find the ball a little bit too much. If it's too far forward, we have to move further left. And because our arc isn't exactly up and down, it's on an axis here, that is going to cause us to go further around. An over-the-top swing is often caused by having too much extension in the wrist. That club face is too much open, and we compensate by knowing that, and we end up swinging over the top. But that over the top sends our path to the left, causing a pull. Lack of club face control during impact. If this is moving a lot or inconsistent, sometimes it's closing too much, sometimes it's opening too much, we're using the wrists incorrectly, we are flipping. All of these things creates instability and causes variable shots that we don't want, like a pull hook and many, many more. We're going to start with aiming, because if we get this right, other good things are going to be easier to do. When we're setting up to the shot, a lot of times you see people putting a club down by their feet here, where they want it to go, and we try and set ourselves parallel to that. All right, that's very sort of old school kind of look. It might not work for the majority of people, and that is quite surprising, because what happens is when you take the external factors away and you're out on a golf course, there's nothing to gauge us here about where we need to aim. We have to generate that precision on our own. And the way I want you to sort of focus on it initially is not by where my hips are, where my feet are, because I can still hit a straight shot even if my feet are this way. It's where my general intention is, and it comes from the sternum here. I want you to choose a target that where you want it to go, and I want you to just imagine there's like a laser beam coming directly out of your chest. You focus on that. Am I pointing squarely at that target? Am I pointing here? No. Am I pointing here? I'm pointing directly at that target. And when I approach the golf ball, I'm still kind of having that in my mind about where that laser beam has pointed. And then very subconsciously, you'll surprise yourself how much squarer you can aim up to that target just automatically. You have enough skills to aim in the right direction. If I said throw something in somewhere, you know instinctively where to throw it. You know how to aim. It's not about this. It's about your general intention. And the more you rehearse aiming from the center of your chest and coming back into the ball this way, you'll find that you calibrate a lot quicker and a lot more reliably. How do you check if you're aiming correctly? If you can, just set up a camera behind you and just see if you're getting it right. Keep rehearsing it. You'll notice that you'll start to calibrate yourself. At first, you might be aiming a little bit too far right, but then you come back. I don't want you to twist yourself back around. We're actually just going to come back here and aim directly straight and keep hitting that spot. The more you rehearse, the better you're going to be at it.
The lead hand knuckles are what we're going to focus on to help us get the correct impact. But before we do that, when you're setting up your radius, I want you to note how many knuckles you can see. Because if you have too many knuckles this way, it's going to feel very awkward to try and square up that club face and get that sort of perfect impact position. The hands are going to be way too far ahead. So we want to feel that the back of the hand is actually compressing into the ball, because this is related to this. We can call this the lead knuckle pointer. The knuckle pointer, right? So my intention through impact is to get my knuckles here down on top of the ball and through. So you be aware of where your knuckles are. This awareness is important at that setup and at that little impact rehearsal. Where are my knuckles? That's the reference point I want you to have. Now we move into the kind of technique. What we're doing is just making a small backswing to begin with. But now, as I make my way back to the ball, I'm trying to return to that impact, but I'm only thinking about these lead knuckles. Am I getting them to where I want to be, where the hands are a little bit ahead of the ball? I'm able to compress it, I'm a little bit open. You can teach yourself perfectly well when you do this. And we're just going to work on some tiny little movements to begin with. Even chip shots, really. I'm just going to go back and through, trying to work on that movement to get the ball compressed, and it's with the knuckles. Believe it or not, hitting an iron flush like a tour pro is a bit easier than you think when you understand this. We think we've got to hit down on the ball to be able to get it up in the air. And to a degree, yes, that has to happen. But more often than not, when we're on the ground here, two things often happen. We're trying to hit down too much, okay? So even if we get the ball first, our energy is sort of just going down into the ground, and we take a big divot, and a lot of force and that strike compression gets lost because we're sort of dispersing it into the ground a little bit more. Likewise, we might try and flip up on it to try and get it a bit more airborne. So a really quick way of learning what a truly good iron shot feels like is by putting it on a massive high tee. And you think, well, how is that going to work? Well, what it's going to teach us is that it's not down, it's not up, it's through. The strike we're hitting is not so much that we're trying to clip it off the tee, but we're allowing the center of the face to strike the ball with a descending blow, but also going through for the maximum amount of contact on the face. We're trying to push the iron through the ball, keeping it on the club face as long as possible. What this drill also does, it's going to give you a very immediate feedback to stop you hitting down, because if we try and go down too much, we're literally just going to displace the tee peg and keep the ball in place. So it's going to be this shallower delivery. We have to have this shallower delivery. By practicing this, you can just start with like an 8-iron, and I want you to just feel some half swings to begin with and feel like, what do I have to do to get this to have a penetrating flight and to make a nice contact? Just little shots like so. What has to happen is we've got to clip the ball, but we cannot allow the flip to happen because it's going to go way too high. And the way we can overemphasize this is actually doing this with a wedge, which is the main drill we're going to do today. So I've got myself a gap wedge here. You can use sand wedge, pitching wedge, whatever you feel comfortable with. From this angle, you can see just how much loft that would have if I hit it like a driver or whatever it might be. I want to really overemphasize this, and that's what this drill's about. I want to have those hands way in front. I want to feel like I'm getting on top of the shot, but able to swing through that way. I'm going through here. I'm not flipping, and I'm certainly not going down, trying to get down to the ball. It's going through. It's a clean contact. To make sure that I don't hit the ball in my face, I have to deliver the club with a bit more shaft lean, and I'm using my wrists in conjunction with my arms and movement of my body to close this club face down, to reduce this angle. I have to reduce that angle to be able to strike that ball like so. There's where I'm trying to sort of strike it. I won't get to there, but that's the sensation. It's like I'm trying to turn this gap wedge into a 7-iron or an 8-iron or something like that. So I take my setup, I'm obviously hovering here, and now I'm just going to swing through and try and strike that. And that felt so good. It came right out of the middle of the club face. Well, I mean, a millimeter to the heel. You can sort of see the strike mark there. But I delivered it into impact and then a whip through. Everything about the energy that I put, even into a half little swing, delivered the energy of the club into the ball to send it that way. There was nothing wasted. No extra forced effort whatsoever. Balance is one of the most important things in the golf swing, but that's pretty boring. Boring! I'm going to give you a tip that pro golfers use, college golfers, and many amateur golfers need to start using. The simplicity of this tip is going to help you stay balanced, going to give you more consistency, and a fantastic swing thought when you're out on the golf course. This is going to blow your mind. So how is the nose going to help us play better golf? And I struggle with this, and this is a fantastic tip for me, is when I make my swing, especially as I come into impact, because I can get a bit eager with trying to get too much speed, I can back away from the ball a little bit so I have enough room for the arms to move through. But what happens by that backing away, I've changed my radius, I've changed my balance. Simply just to make contact, I have to throw my arms out a little bit further. Now, if I don't do that perfectly every time, I'm going to catch it out the toe, or I might catch it a little bit heavy. Very detrimental, especially under pressure. This tip it was given to me actually many moons ago, but very recently, two exceptionally good golfers have reminded me of it. One used to play golf in college. He's won the club championship many years. He doesn't play much golf anymore, just socially at the country club. Fantastic player, brilliant, consistent ball striker. He does this. And one of the reasons why I wanted to share this was because just last week I was playing in a charity scramble. The team that won, I finished 4th, I think, which is pretty good, our team, but the team that won, he was a college golf, but I think he's like +1 or something like that. He mentioned he hadn't played much golf at all over winter. You know, it's March now, end of March. But what he did do was just give himself a very simple task so he didn't completely screw up. He wasn't thinking about too much during the golf swing. He was just trying to keep his head steady, right? Just keep the head steady and try and swing around there. Doesn't mean keeping it still all the way through so we stay down, but keeping it steady. The other thing is, it's not just about staying stable forwards and backwards, it's actually left and right. Because we do want the head to stay centered. Yes, on some bigger drives, we might get a little bit more movement as we transfer back, but we have to be sure that we're going to transfer correctly on the way through. However, if you just give yourself a goal of staying stable with the head and specifically keeping stable with the nose, being aware of your nose and trying to keep that in space, in the same amount of space, it's going to help you stay centered and pivot around a certain point. But on the downswing, I'm trying to keep that nose steady in place. I'm not thinking about anything else. And obviously on the way through, it's going to come up. But up until impact, from the setup all the way through the takeaway, backswing, I am just feeling like I'm keeping that nose still. It's not going to stay dead still, but that intention, I guarantee, is going to help you hit a lot more shots out of the middle of the club face a lot easier. As we take our setup, I'm stable, I'm finding my balance, but my nose is my intention to stay steady. I keep it steady there. I am going to be very aware if I move back away from it. Just this little goal is going to fix so many different swing flaws, because you can't make a bad swing where you're over here, or if you come over the top, if you keep this nose still. So every swing you make, just rehearse, slowly, trying to keep that nose as still as possible. Doing this is going to make life much easier for you, especially out on the golf course. It works for Georgia, it works for me, it works for many fantastic golfers, and it's going to help you. Now, if you want not just consistency hitting out the sweet spot and you want a little more distance, this video is going to help you a ton. I'll see you next time. And Georgia, we'll see you next time.